Okay, so 2025 definitely hasn't been the busiest year for animation fans, but nonetheless it still has been a very interesting and unique year. This year we got a good variety of different animated films, and in today's video I'm excited to rank the 10 best films I've seen this year. And now, with the preamble out of the way, we're going to start with... Okay, so to start with, I should probably make it clear that I've never really been the biggest Wallace and Gromit fan. I've certainly always enjoyed their films, and I've always been able to recognise the enormous amount of effort that have been put into making their films, but unfortunately those films have just never really stuck with me after seeing them. And unfortunately that trend continues here with Wallace and Gromit and The Vengeance Most Foul. Again, I can recognise and see the immense amount of effort that have gone into making this 2D stop-motion animation film, but unfortunately Wallace and Gromit just is one of those franchises that doesn't quite have the energy to keep me interested. Although for what the film is, I do think it is a pretty good film. And yes, this film does do the thing of bringing back a previously established villain, just for the sakes of doing so. But still, I could say anything I want to, however, at the end of the day, this film will always be a Wallace and Gromit film. And just as a Wallace and Gromit film, it is still a pretty good movie. Really, if you're a fan of Wallace and Gromit, then you're probably going to enjoy this movie. And if you're a fan of 2D stop-motion animation, then you're definitely going to enjoy it on that level as well. I remember seeing the first BatmanNinja movie a few years ago. And really, as a Batman film, I didn't think it was anything too special. However, it was a lot of dumb fun, and I did enjoy it on that level. And really, I think that Batman Yakuza League continues this trend. And really, in comparing both of these movies, I think that this movie, Batman Yakuza League, is slightly better than its predecessor. Honestly, in this movie, the animation seems a little bit more refined, the story definitely has a tone that it's aiming to achieve, and the choreography for the fight scenes seems a little better. Again, just as a Batman film, it's probably not going to break my top 5 for Batman movies, but just as a film on its own, I definitely think that it is a lot of fun. I remember back when this film first came out, that there were a few people saying that this movie and its predecessor was a bit too ridiculous for them, and I kind of understand what they mean, but really when it comes to me, myself, I think that the more ridiculous something is, the more fun I'm going to have with it, honestly. Okay, and now we're heading over to France, where it is so nice to see that 2D animation is still alive and well. Okay, so DeathDoesNotExist was definitely a difficult film to find in cinemas, without of course sailing the 7 seas, but was also one of those films that was actually worth the effort to see. Really, this film is beautifully animated and creatively abstract. The film's story is clearly pointful and definitely has a certain message that it's trying to get across. And yeah, there might be 1 or 2 moments throughout the film where this film is a bit too obvious with what it's trying to say, which really I wouldn't normally bring up, but in a film with visuals this abstract was kind of something that did catch my eye. And yeah, considering what I've seen online as well, some people have also definitely noticed this as well. But really, where I differ from them is where I acknowledge that that did happen throughout the film, it still wasn't something that actually put me off the film. Because at the end of the day, this film is still so beautifully animated and so clearly has had so much hard work and effort poured into it. Okay, so DreamWorks definitely knows how to adapt a comic book. Really, coming off the success of their Captain Underpants adaptation, I think they really knew what they were going to do with this DogMan movie. Now, DogMan as a character isn't one that I'm all that familiar with, but in terms of this movie, I don't think it's a character you need to be all that familiar with before going in to see the film. Now, I haven't seen or heard a lot of people talking about this movie online, but I definitely know that this movie does still have its fans. And really, just with what I'm trying to say here is the fact that I don't really know how people feel about this movie as an adaptation of the books. Just as a movie on its own though, I definitely think that a lot of people had fun, and me personally, I definitely had some fun with it, yeah. Although I definitely recognise that it is a film not exactly meant for everyone. Really, at the end of the day, I think that this film was definitely something meant for the fans of the book series, as well as younger audiences. And really, as an animated film, I do acknowledge that this movie does have some really quite phenomenal looking animation. And really, something that I found so interesting about this film's animation style was the way that it blended its influences from the original book series with its own newer ideas. I know I've said it before in previous videos, but I'm going to say it again anyway. I really do enjoy the way that DreamWorks has experimented with the aesthetics for a lot of its recent films, and really I'm excited to see how this trend continues in the future. I know there's going to be a lot of people asking me why this film is so low on the list, but unfortunately I just couldn't rank it any higher. Okay, so ChainSawMan The Reese Arc is definitely a good movie. It's a movie with some stellar anime visuals and some great character work, but it's still an anime movie that I think relies on a good number of tropes. As a film on its own, I definitely think it's a lot of fun and definitely worth a watch. However, in saying that, the movie is still definitely an anime film, and really, as someone who hasn't kept up with the anime all that much, I don't know how this film is going to be looked on in the future. And of course, with anime films where the series is still ongoing and the film is also being released, there has always been a tendency to just kind of ignore what happens in the film and just focus on the series continuing as it is. Which, I won't lie, has always been something that has kind of just lessened my interest in a lot of anime movies. Which I do recognise is probably just on me for not keeping up with the series, but is still something that lingers with me. However, disregarding how the film story might fit in with the wider series-wide story, I do definitely admire what this film is and definitely think that it was a lot of fun. Okay, so, The Bad Guys 2. DreamWorks' trend of putting out absolutely great sequels continues here. And whilst this film might not be on the level of a How to Train Your Dragon 2 or a Kung Fu Panda 2, I definitely think that it is still a great sequel in its own right. The bad guys are back for another adventurous heist, and it is a lot of fun. Another great DreamWorks trend that also continues here is that this movie has an absolutely phenomenal villain. She's a character who really sits in a great contrast to our main heroes and really makes the film quite a bit more interesting. Whilst I did think that the movie missed a few opportunities with what it could say, I do still think that the movie did really quite well with a lot of the points that it did end up making. The story and characters were a lot of fun, and some of the comedy really did hit quite well. And lastly, the animation for this film was pretty stellar. DreamWorks returned to their 3D 2D hybrid style of animation, and it was great to see because you could really just look at the film and see a lot of the hard work and effort that had gone into making it. Okay, so I really have to admit that in picking a spot for this film on this list, I was really fighting to just decide which film should be placed where. Ultimately, however, I did decide that Zootopia 2 should be ranked just a little higher than The Bad Guys 2. Because really, whilst both of these films are so intensely imaginative and just do have a lot of fun, I do also think that Zootopia 2 edges out The Bad Guys 2 just a little by having a more interesting world. Like The Bad Guys 2, Zootopia 2 has a fun story and some really interesting characters. In my initial review for the movie, I did say that I thought the movie missed a few story and character opportunities. In the time that I've had to think since putting out the review, I do still kind of believe that. Really, there are aspects of this movie that have grown on me, but there are still some of those aspects that I think could have been explored more. Really, I think there's a wealth of storytelling opportunities to this world and these characters, and I felt like this movie really wanted to touch on a lot of those different ideas, but then unfortunately didn't have the time it needed to really develop those ideas to a good extent. And really one of my biggest criticisms would just have to be that some characters didn't get enough screen time. I found characters like Gary, Porbert and the other Linksleys all very interesting, but still didn't think that they got a lot of time to shine on screen. And honestly, if you've seen the film, then I think you know what I'm talking about. Especially when you remember the fact that we only get to see one scene of Porbert and his siblings together before they go their separate ways. And really, it's just little things like that that hold the film back from being great for me. However, in saying that, I do still acknowledge that this is a good movie. I really enjoyed this film's story, its characters, and its animation. And I really enjoyed that the film tried to tackle some more mature subjects like systemic corruption, greed, and wealth inequality. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of irony when a billion-dollar company is saying that rich people are bad. I find this movie fascinating. Not really because of the film itself, its story, characters, or anything like that, but instead more so for just how people were talking about this film when it came out. Okay, so Neja 2 is a good movie. It continues where the last film left off. It's got some great characters, some great visuals, and some really cool fight scenes. And of course, I don't know how it adapts the Chinese myths it's based off, but I do still think that, from what I've heard, it seems to be pretty good. And really, I think that all of these factors came together in the end to create a pretty good movie. But really, the biggest thing for me that happened with this movie was just how people started talking about it afterwards. Because of course, the film came out and people saw the film make just so much money. And when it did, people really started to talk about animation and film in a way that I hadn't seen them talk about in ages. So I found that really quite fun and interesting. I saw people just talking about how they saw the movie and how they enjoyed it so much, in addition to other people who saw the movie make over $1 billion and then began to equate box office success with, creative success, which really isn't my sort of thing at all. I mean, you can make a good movie without it being successful at the box office. But still, I do think that that was a fun and interesting conversation to see take place. And then lastly, of course, there was the people who were just so shocked that a story and a movie like this could come out of China. Which, was its own can of worms. So yeah, Neja 2 was a movie that I thought was pretty good, but then was a movie that suddenly became really interesting. And honestly, because of that, it's gotta take a top spot on my list. Lost in Starlight. This is a fantastically animated film. Seriously, this is one of the most beautiful animated films I've seen in ages. Really, there's just so much fluid movement, so much colour, and so much vibrancy to this film. And really, it's just so fantastically animated that I couldn't not enjoy it. One thing I couldn't enjoy about it, though, was the romance. Really not because the romance was badly written or anything like that, but instead largely just because I'm not someone who really goes into romantic films all that much. Instead, I'm someone who thinks that romantic films can get a little melodramatic, but here I didn't really have that sort of problem. Because of course, whilst this still is a romance film, it is still an animated film that really takes advantage of just being animated. This is also a pretty great sci-fi film, which really, again, uses the medium of animation to the best extent. This film just has so many different and unique ideas that I don't think you could find in any other live-action sci-fi film. The story and characters for this film are all pretty unique and interesting. Again, the romance is a big part of this movie, but it isn't something that really holds it back for me. I think it is a romance that I think a lot of other people, especially if you like romance movies, will get into pretty easily. And whilst this film is a romance film, it isn't a film where the romance is the entire story. Because really, this is a film that shares its time with its romance plot, as well as a pretty interesting character and sci-fi plot. And honestly, I'm very hesitant to actually give anything away, and would rather just have people go out and see the film for themselves. Even if you're someone who is kinda like me and doesn't really go in for a lot of romance films, I definitely think that you'll have a lot of fun with Lost in Starlight. And before we go in for the number one spot, I want to give out some honourable mentions. The first film I want to give an honourable mention to is Arco. This film looks fantastic, and I'm really excited to see it one day. And honestly, it's not on this list just because I haven't seen it yet. And yes, my last honourable mention goes to Elio. Whilst not being a film with an impactful enough story to get on this list, I do still think it is a film worth giving an honourable mention to. Honestly, my favourite part of the film would of course just have to be the intro with Voyager and Kate Mulgrew. Okay, and now it's of course time for the number one spot, and I'm pretty sure you can guess what it is. And yes, you're right. KPopDemonHunters takes the #1 spot on my list for 2025. Really, I don't think there's anything I can say about this movie that hasn't already been said by somebody else. This movie is a lot of fun. It's action-packed, it's imaginative, and it's funny. And in addition to all of these things, it's one of the best animated musicals to come out in years. And yes, I've seen what people have said online. Of course the story isn't anything new. But really, the way that it's presented is just so unique and interesting that I can't not enjoy it. And the songs, they are fantastic. They really fit the vibe of what you'd expect from a movie centered around K-pop. The songs really take a lot of influence from K-pop and really sound like something you'd expect to hear from a K-pop band, whilst also still being songs that fit well with a musical and actually forward the story that the movie is trying to tell. There's a reason why this movie became one of Netflix's most successful films in years, and because of that, I definitely think it's worth the #1 spot on this list. But of course, this is just my list, and it's my ranking. So please, everybody, let me know what you thought about my list and my ranking. Tell me what you thought about the movies we got this year, and let me know in the comments section down below what movies you're excited to see next year. Thank you all for watching, everybody. Please don't forget to do any of the usual YouTube stuff, like, subscribe and comment. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.